Welcome again, friends, to the Christian Bear, and welcome to our next installment of our Where Are They Now series. I'm happy to welcome one of my good friends and partners in this work, the Reverend Anna Guillozet. And I'm going to give Anna a chance to introduce herself. Anna, if you could tell us your pronouns, your position, and any background you'd like to share with us before we get started.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking me to join you, Ben. It's really great to be here. You were correct. I use she, her pronouns. Um, I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. I've been serving in ministry in the United Methodist context since 2008, and even a little bit before then, through my college years. But right now, I have the great privilege of serving as the senior pastor at Linworth United Methodist Church on the northwest side of Columbus. I've been here just a little longer than 4 years, and it's a really great congregation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So to get us started, what is your earliest faith memory?
My earliest faith memory, and I'm going to sneeze. So I'm going to sneeze before, well, I thought I was going to sneeze. Because when I sneeze, it's like 8 times in a row. So I was going to try to sneeze before I told the story. I don't think that will happen. My earliest faith memory is going with my dad in the summers to the Wyandotte Mission Church in my hometown of Upper Sandusky. The Wyandotte Mission Church was it was the first Methodist church for Indians, for Native people. And it obviously it's in my hometown. And when I was younger, during the summers, they would have ecumenical community worship services that were very early in the morning. The goal was that the service was early enough so that you could come to the mission church and then still go to your own church after that. But my father was a truck driver for most of my childhood, and he was only home on the weekends. So I tried to soak up any time with him that I could get, which meant getting out of bed very early to go and worship at this small historic church. And one of our great friends would preach there once a summer. His name is Eagle Bear Burling, and he would always put me to work as the usher when I was there. So I would hand out the bulletins and would help pass the offering basket. And mind you, this is like a one-room church, so it took a grand total of 30 seconds, but I felt so important because I, as a very little girl, was asked to participate in church.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that story. How would you characterize your faith as a child, adolescent?
Faith for me as a child, it was really led by my parents. I did what they told me to do. I went to church when and where they told me to go. And I'm so thankful for that. I was never resentful of that. I'm Cradle United Methodist in the literal sense. But as I grew, my mother, who was very, very Methodist, she stayed true to worshiping in our home church. But my dad, who was born and raised Catholic, he had worshiped in the Methodist church for a bit after they got married. And then I think I was around 8 or 9 years old. He started going to the non-denominational church on the outskirts of town. And he was rebaptized in the river in our house, which I have some feelings about now that I'm a United Methodist clergy person. But I just remember going through childhood watching my dad try to figure out his faith in an adult context and never feeling like that was crisis. I think right now we see people like doing the work of deconstruction, and it's sort of trendy to just name that. And I think a lot of times those of us within institutional Christianity feel like people who are deconstructing are doing so because they're responding to some sort of like faith or personal crisis. But I grew up in the example of my dad doing that work and doing it in a really healthy way. So I just have such a heart for people who are trying to figure out what faith looks like for themselves, and just trying to be available to ask them good reflective questions, to be a resource where they might need it, and to really just be a non-judgmental presence as they try to figure faith out for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you. When or if did you feel that your faith, your spirituality started to change?
Mm. I've never really felt like my faith has been stagnant. But when I went to college, I realized that the world was bigger than my hometown. I realized that my faith was bigger than the church that I grew up in. I realized that Christianity is broader than I had understood it. So I guess I credit that to my college career. I was a youth ministry major when I studied at Ohio Northern University. So I was doing a little bit of that through the curriculum, but also just through the community that I was with. Trying to put into context my small town upbringing with this like big world and big faith that was making itself known to me.
How would you characterize your faith or spirituality now?
I would say right now my faith and spirituality are steady, in that they are my faith is something that has grounded me throughout many life experiences. Most notably, I think the death of my parents. My mom died when I was 19, and I watched my older brother really struggle with how he articulated his relationship with a God who would let this happen to us. I Though I was very angry at God, I never understood that anger to be a negative emotion or a negative faith response. And then I lost my dad like almost 3 years ago, and I just felt a lot of the same things. I felt angry, I felt lonely, but I never understood those to be emotions or feelings that separated me from God. In a lot of ways, I understood those to be ways that I was closer to God in the midst of some of my own turmoil. And beyond my vocational Christianity, I have the immense privilege and frustration of parenting an 8.5-year-old daughter. And holy cow, she makes me question my own theology in ways that I think everybody needs to. Like, if you are ever struggling to articulate your own theology, like hang out with an 8-year-old who has questions and you'll figure it out quick, because you have to. Like, I don't know is not an answer for them. So it's been fun to watch her grow in that too.
Awesome. Is there anything else, Anna, you'd like to add? That's kind of the end of my formal questions.
Things I would like to add, I would just say to anybody who is watching or listening or consuming this, to take any frustrations with the institutional church and honor them. I myself, working in the context of the United Methodist Church, which is obviously in the midst of turmoil in the denomination, I see people who have taken a stance of like conscientious objectors and have just left the Methodist Church, and I honor that. But also, I have found that there is such an honesty of being the remnant that stays and continues to work for change. And obviously, I only say that to somebody who feels like remaining within a particular church or denomination feels safe. Like, never put yourself in harm's way, whether it's spiritual or emotional or even physical harm, to participate in a church community. But I'm just learning the beauty of that change happens both from the inside of an organization or an institution and from the outside. So it takes people on the inside pressing out And it takes people on the outside pulling out too, in order for circles to be made wider, in order for welcome to be bigger, in order for life and faith to be more inclusive. So, I guess I'd just like to say to anybody listening, like, claim your own story, claim your own hurt in ways that are safe for you. But I think trying to keep our hurt by the church and within the church quiet is not serving the church well. And God calls us to speak truth to the range of our emotions and experiences. So again, wherever somebody feels safe, I encourage them to just live with whatever feelings they feel about a church or an institution.
Amen. Amen. Well, Anna, thank you so much for being on this episode of The Christian Bear. I really appreciate your presence, all of your wisdom. And again, for our listeners, the Reverend Anna Guillozet, Senior Pastor at Linworth United Methodist Church. I will put Linworth's website in the episode description. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben.